Previously on Ranma 1/2 Character Profiles.
Oh yeah, nice turn signal there, asswipe!
Oh. Hello, boys and girls. Glad you were able to come to see me during visiting hours. Actually, it's getting pretty late. Visiting hours are almost over, but you got a little bit of time, so pop a squat. Don't be shy. Come closer. Hey. Yeah, I just come out of a long recovery. Guess I learned my lesson about that damn shotgun bean plant. Never again, I tell you! So, other than that, I'm doing quite well, I guess. The food sucks. I'm getting along with all the other patients. I'm learning more than I ever wanted to know about this guy, about that guy. But the most fascinating story? Hey, you got a few minutes? I'm sure if you stay a few minutes past visiting hour, it won't be a big deal. Go ahead, sit down. It's story time with DJClyve.
We had this one guy come in. He was a young kid. He was about 16. He had a really severe condition. He was terminally ill, and his time was short. Every day he would lay in bed and watch as the persimmons fell from the tree outside his window, a chilling reminder that summer was coming to a close. His doctor had told him he would not make it to autumn. Each persimmon falling from the tree was just another step closer towards his demise, and when the last of the fruits had fallen, his time will have finally... Oh no, he didn't! Oh god! Talk about taking years off a person's life! Ugh! Who eats persimmons anyway? Eesh. So anyway, this sickly young boy goes by the name of Densuke, that's it. The cause of his illness remains a mystery, but there is a cure which needs to be taken orally. But that's just the problem. Densuke refuses to take it. As to why, well, it's kinda obvious. I mean, kids have always been repulsed by the taste of medicine. There is nothing they dread more than putting that horrid-tasting substance in their mouths. And most kids spend their childhoods praying they never get sick, for the sake of their taste buds' well-being. I mean, Dimetap, Robitussin, Kaopectate. Just saying those names aloud makes my tongue want to shrivel up and somehow hide. Of course, with age, all kids generally become accustomed to that awful taste and put up with it. Teenagers and adults know what's best for themselves, and they can handle a few seconds of an awful taste in their mouths if it means it'll get rid of their cold. But, alas, this is not the case with Densuke. Despite being old enough not to be considered a child anymore, Densuke never got over his childhood fear of medicine, even though it's the one thing that will save his life. Densuke cannot stand a moment's distaste in his mouth. However, there is one condition under which he will make an exception. If a beautiful young nurse his age, one with a gorgeous body, were to ask him to take it, he would happily face his fears this one time. Yep. Needless to say, Densuke, he's kind of a sicko, no pun intended. But to be fair, he does have his reasons for such a desire. Since he was born, Densuke never had the joys of knowing any beautiful women. And yes, I mean since he was born. Just look at his mother. Are those lips or a duckbill? How drunk would you have to be to procreate with that? Excuse me. Densuke has no doubt spent his whole life dreaming of what a good-looking girl looks like. This has unfortunately become his Achilles heel. Densuke has very stereotypical views of what a nurse should look like. Hourglass figure, a bust that defies gravity, a seductively gorgeous face, and a skimpy uniform that barely covers anything. To say the least, his expectations were not met. Traumatized by the harsh reality of these real-life, not-so-good-looking nurses, Densuke would rather die than take the medicine they give him. To him, it is bad enough putting the accursed stuff in his mouth. To have it administered by such a repulsive nurse? He would prefer death! We all have our dying wish. In the case of Densuke, simply dying in the arms of a beautiful woman would be all he needs to rest in peace. Now, it would be really hard to say no to Densuke. He and his mother could have been pulled out of a soap opera. All that's missing from his speeches is the world's smallest violin playing the world's saddest song. Out of pity for this dying boy, Ranma Saotome decided to use his cursed body and give him a second chance. Who couldn't resist Ranma-chan in a nurse's uniform? Well, for Densuke, that is certainly a step in the right direction. He will now gladly take his medicine, but only if Ranma administers it to him mouth to mouth. That sick bastard Densuke was really starting to push his luck. He succeeded in getting Ranma in a porn star getup, sure, but the buck stops here. Ranma will go so far as to titillate, but she has her limits. Ranma tried everything she could think of to get Densuke to take his medicine. She tried holding his nose, but he held his breath to the point where he nearly suffocated. She tried giving him a taste of the girlfriend experience by taking him on a romantic date with the obvious intent of slipping him his medicine, but somehow Densuke outsmarted her every time. And things went from bad to worse when Densuke, unable to control his naughty desires, slipped Ranma-chan a little something too. Knockout drops! Ranma awoke to find herself wrapped in only a kimono and resting in a motel room. And you know the kind of motel room I'm talking about. I'm talking about one of those really sleazy motel rooms, one where you can smell the sex on the walls and the beds vibrate, the kind flings use for one-night stands. And there, she saw Densuke, apologetic for his actions, but still desperately hoping to get lucky on his first date. Needless to say, Ranma had no intention of giving it up to another guy, and responded to Densuke's advances by sending him to space via Air Ranma! Well, it's still skin-on-skin contact, I guess, so he could be happy with that. So, anyway, despite the near-rape experience, the two, would you believe it or not, they had a very enjoyable date. Any guy on a date with a hot girl like Ran-chan would be beaming from ear to ear. And late that night, Densuke felt he had seen the top of the mountain in the park, under the moonlight. Densuke confessed to Ranma how he felt, that she had truly made this the happiest day of his life. And now, thanks to her, he was finally brave enough to take his medicine. But he still wanted to take it mouth to mouth, of course! This is starting to piss me off, and I'm the guy telling the story. Ranma, having more than enough perversions for one day, threw her punch, but Densuke fell to the ground before her fist even made contact. Densuke was rushed back to the hospital. He had not much time left. His medicine had to be administered now. It had to be administered mouth to mouth. Oh, Ranma, no one denies that you are macho. No one denies that you don't swing that way, but if it means life or death, could you just this once give the boy what he wants? And wouldn't you know it, A quiet beeping on the heart monitor filled the air the next day, the morning sun shining through the window. Densuke arose from his bed. Upon his lips was a very soft feeling, and resting her head in his lap was girl-type Ranma fast asleep. Densuke felt like he had died and gone to heaven. The mere thought that he had shared his first kiss with a smoking hot, gorgeous girl, just knowing that her lips had made contact, to him alone, that had healed his poor, sick body. Densuke embraced the sleeping girl in a hug, hoping to get to round 2. But Ranma's punch and an inconveniently placed thermos suddenly turned Densuke's rebirth into a near-death experience. How did Densuke cope with learning Ranma's secret? Meh. She was still the hottest thing on 2 legs that he'd ever seen, so he was still happy. Surely things couldn't have been any worse, right? Oh, but they could. You see, Ranma may have been willing to dress up in a sexy nurse's outfit. He may have been reluctantly willing to date with another guy. But do you really think that Ranma would be willing to put that medicine in his mouth and then lock tongues with this boy? Ah! Hell no! So who was it who gave Densuke his medicine, I hear you ask? I hear you asking that. Do you really want to know? Do you? Do you? I think you want to know. I hear a spoiler alert coming. Spoiler alert. Tune out if you don't want to know right now, so I'm going to tell you right now. It was administered to him by none other than the doctor! Just look at him! But perhaps we should keep hush-hush on this. I think it's best that Densuke is left with the delusion that Ranma-chan kissed him. He may be cool with Ranma's curse, but should he ever find out that it was the doctor who locked lips with his...
It's okay, just a false alarm, nothing to worry about here. Everything's... A-okay. Hey, you know that story I just told you? It was a Ranma 1/2 character profile. This profile was brought to you in part by JWStudios and by Shade. Alright, well, I think you better hit the road before the nurses come by and yell at you. Thanks for stopping by and seeing little old me. And don't worry about me. I got a long life ahead of me. Yep. There's a lot of life left in these bones. A whole lot of life. I ain't going anywhere. Don't worry about me.